Hey guys, so Serum has been around for longer than I've been even producing, and it's one of the first synths that I learned sound designing in. And now the sequel to that, which is Serum 2, is out, and honestly I think it came out of nowhere. No one saw it coming, XFO didn't make any big announcement or anything. Then one fine day they were just like, boom, there's Serum 2. And the best part is, it's free if you're an existing Serum user. So I just thought I'd make a quick track where I use some of my new favorite features and yeah, just show you guys the process and the new things that you can do within this beast of a synth. So the track starts with this patch. It sounds like this. So as you can see, I'm using all three oscillators here, but that bubbly thing is coming from this oscillator A, in which I'm modulating the wavetable position. This is actually one of the new wavetables from Serum 2. It's the one called DX Pros, and I'm modulating the wavetable position with LFO1. So I think the starting position is a little more muted, or the ending position is. Yeah, so the ending position is a little more muted, but the sound gets brighter on the left side. So I'm just modulating that with the new LFO, which is set to this Chaos Rossler mode. And with that, it sounds like this. Oscillator A goes into the filter. The filter goes into the effects, and it goes into the main effects, where I have a ping pong delay, which sounds like this. So without the delay, actually, it sounds like. But with the delay, it just gets a little more fluttery, and I've set it to ping pong mode, so it keeps bouncing left and right. And then that also goes through a filter with a little band notch, and that position for that notch, or the cutoff position, is being modulated by LFO2. So it just creates these tiny moments, and it's quite random, the shape. I think I've set it to BPM. So anyway, it just creates some more variation in the sound. So that's that. Now the second oscillator, or oscillator B, is interesting because, so you can see, it's not going out. It doesn't have an output. But what it does have is a bus out, which means it's going to bus 1 right now. And that is located within the effects. And here, I've ran it through some distortion. So without the distortion, it sounds like this. But I wanted that gritty sound. And I wanted this gated trance-like effect, so I added another filter. I put it again to bandpass mode, and it's being modulated by LFO2. So you get this choppy, gated effect. Now the cool thing is, since this is on bus 1, my main sound, which is oscillator A, is not affected by it. So when you hear both of them together, you'll hear them as separate sounds coming from the same synth. So both of these layers together sound like this. So oscillator A is unaffected by that gate, whereas oscillator B is doing that 16th note rhythm. Effects section in Serum 2 has seen a big update because of these bus effects, where you can create some really complex chains to make cool sounds. Okay, let's see what's happening with oscillator C. All right, here I'm using one of my favorite modes, which is the granular mode. I'm not going to explain exactly what granular synthesis is, but you can think about it as a mode of sampling where you break down an audio file into tiny grains and then play them all together, and you get this really fluttery sound depending on your grain size and the length and stuff. But essentially that's what I'm using here, and I think that is going to the main. So you hear the original oscillator, but you also hear a reverb version of it, which is on bus 2 because it's being sent to bus 2. So that by itself sounds like this. So I think you get a fair idea of what I meant by these bus effects making Serum super powerful, because now you can, create individual effect strips for your oscillators and be very specific with what you want to do in terms of effects with each of these oscillators. So all three layers together sound like this. So that's the first sound, and then I made this respace patch. So another new thing with the new Serum update is that the unison controls have moved here within the oscillator section. So this thing used to be in the global settings, but it's here right now. So that's quite handy. And what I've done essentially is I've reduced the range to 0 and I've increased the wavetable position. So what this means is every new voice in this unison is slightly offset wavetable position of this wavetable. So that's what, changes the wavetable itself on each side, and that's how you get the width. So it's not just a detune, you're actually changing the wave shape on each side, or with each new voice that is being added in this unison. If I play it without the filter, you'll really hear the width because of those upper harmonics. Cool. And after that, this oscillator just goes into the effects through some tube distortion. That's about it. So that with that initial synth layer sounds like this. Nice. And then I have this other layer, which is like a granular vocal sample. You can just drag samples into the oscillator section, by the way. And I have not changed much. Like, I just switched to granular mode and I'm just moving the wavetable position. So by default, it is set to this one-shot mode where it scans the sample. But what I have done here is switch to the manual mode. So I can set the position manually and fluctuate that based on where I want it to be. And I'm also adding some distortion in terms of wavetable modulation with this. So that goes into some reverb. This is a new reverb algorithm, by the way, and it sounds awesome. It's called Nitros. There are 3 new reverb algorithms, one called Vintage, Nitros, and Basin. And then that goes through some filtering, and that's about it for this sound. I also resampled some of that granular vocal track, and I think I pitched it up to get these effects. And another thing that gets neglected quite often is the Serum effects module, where it's not, you don't have the oscillators, but you have the entire effects chain of Serum, which makes it like insanely powerful. It just basically means you can use Serum effects on any sound you want or any synth. So let's say you're using like an Arturia synth or something. You can still use Serum effects with a patch that comes out of a different synth. So yeah, I've just ran that resampled audio through some distortion and this really awesome new filter, which is the MG Dirty filter. So I don't know, it just does some magic to whatever you run through it. It just makes it really dirty and gritty. That's with the filter, and without. Yeah, it's just something. It sounds great. Okay, let's move on to the beat section. I just made this basic drum pattern. Okay, so this is another cool feature with Serum 2. So Serum 1 used to have this note on random modulator, but the problem with that was there were only 2 of those available. But now you have this new note on random discrete option, where no matter how many instances of note on discrete you use to modulate stuff, it's always going to be a different value on each parameter, and that makes it insanely powerful. So what I've done here is I'm modulating the ADSR of the sound. Yeah, so you can see I'm modulating the curve for this envelope with note on discrete. So every time for both these values, it's going to be different each time. So if you just observe this part, you can see it's never at the same spot. Sometimes it's positive for one and negative for the other. Sometimes it's positive or negative. But it's like highly random. So yeah, this patch is basically that. These two wave shapes going through the filter and then going through these effects, some hyperdimension for width. And so this is what it sounds like without the effects. And then some width. And then the filters are always my favorite within Serum, and I use this one quite often called All Pass filter. I don't know, it just makes it sound a little more metallic, and I like that sound. That is layered with this 808 that I made. So for this 808, I'm using this new wave table from the Serum 2 tables, and it's called 808 Harms. So you can hear it has some upper harmonics which are being filtered. But that goes into a distortion where I'm using this awesome overdrive mode. This is another new distortion within Serum. And then that goes into this downsample mode, which is like if you've used Redux within Ableton, it kind of does that. And it adds this ringing sound on top. And I'm just equalizing it a bit where I boost the low end. With the second oscillator, I'm trying to add some width, but if you see, the unison is set to 1 over here. So how am I doing it? I'm sending the second oscillator only to bus 1. And in bus 1, I'm again using this new effect called bode. And this is a really cool effect where, I don't know, it kind of pitch shifts the left and the right side depending on how you set the direction. So that layered with the main wavetable just makes the 808 feel a little more fuller in the stereo spectrum. Again, like I said, the Serum effects is like insanely powerful, especially with the bus channels now. Okay, then I added this patch. It's like a quick stab. It uses another new form of synthesis, which is spectral within Serum. And it also has a filter built in. So what I did was I loaded the sample and you can draw your own filter shape. And then I'm modulating the filter cutoff with this shape. Okay, so when you're using the spectral mode, you get this additional modulator called spectral modulator. And here you have a bunch of options, but what I like is this gate mode, which kind of listens to only the loudest harmonics and filters out the rest. So I've increased that a bit, and I'm also modulating that again with LFO1. I'm using FM for the sound from oscillator B. Also, by the way, the FM in Serum 2 is different from the FM that was there in Serum 1. If you want to use the Serum 1 FM, that's now called PD. So that's going to sound familiar if that's what you're looking for. In terms of effects, it's again just going through this OTT preset within the Serum compressor with some overdrive. And also, by the way, with overdrive, you can stack the instances of overdrive. So I'm using like 4. So if I was using 1, it would sound like that, but with 4, it just becomes grittier. You're like multiplying that. So those 3 sounds together sound like. Okay, next up I made this lead, which was actually a preset. I tweaked it a little bit, and that's one thing that I would recommend to all of you. Like, go through some of these presets because they're awesome, one, and they will also teach you ways of using the synth that you may not think of. And I think I just added some different distortion types, and I filtered the distortion to make the high end a little more shrill. And I think that's all I did to this preset. Yeah, so the takeaway here is to look at the presets and learn from the presets. Then in the end, I just made this. So here I'm using the spectral synthesis again, and I'm using, by the way, for each of these syntheses, you also have their own custom wavetables. And I think I resampled this with the gate on. I ended up with this sound after all that. The results from these warping modes and all, it may not be exactly what you can anticipate, but that's where the fun is. So you can like mess around with it and find something that sounds cool. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, that's the track. And I haven't really dug into like everything that Serum 2 can do, because there's a lot that it can do. But I just wanted to touch upon some of my favorite things, and this happens to be it. So yeah, thanks to Steve Duda for making another kick-ass synth and the entire XFR team. I can't wait to dig in deeper and use this in my future projects. Peace.